The Philadelphia Phillies look to have dodged a bullet with Trea Turner's recent hamstring injury not seeming to shut him down for the season. We have a ton of moves to get into in reaction to Turner being sent to the injured list and do want to highlight exactly what this means for the Phillies moving forward. Obviously, we've been holding our breath since he did leave the previous game after pulling up lame running to first base, and we know that hamstring issues have been something that plagued Turner before. But we know for the most part we have good news to celebrate today, so do want to dive into the latest. And to jump right into it here, do want to start off with this report from Matt Gelb, which I think is the biggest storyline here. And he says, quote, "The Trea Turner injury is not believed to be season-ending, a season-ending one according to multiple team sources." And that is the biggest factor here. Obviously, not ideal that the Phillies have to get to the finish line, possibly without their star shortstop here. But the bottom line, the biggest thing that we should be looking to prioritize is making sure he's available for the postseason run. And that still looks to be on the table at this point. Now, to dive into the full roster moves that did pop its way here, we got a lot to break down. Shout out to our guy, Luke Arcaney, in the weeds, breaking this down here. And he says, so Trea Turner to the IL with a grade 1 hamstring strain. The Phillies expect him back for the postseason, possibly earlier. On top of that, Alec Bohm to the injured list with shoulder soreness. Phillies expect him back in 10 days. Otto Kemp back at the major league level, which does help solve that Alec Bohm issue that he can fill in and play some third base there. And the Phillies also select the contract of infielder Donovan Walton, which I do think is a bit interesting there. On top of that, Brandon Marsh is asleep at Citizens Bank Park with the flu. He is not in the lineup today. And Bryce Harper hitting leadoff with Max Kepler hitting cleanup. So a lot to get into here and doing a hit on the main points of this. So obviously the main story being Trea Turner, that this is the guy that a lot is dependent on. And the bigger story is really what he looks like when he returns. That I am confident we do see Trea Turner play baseball again this year. What the fear level should be is hamstring injuries are something that can linger. And we do know Turner has a bit of a track record with these. And this is a player in particular whose speed is such an asset in his game. So they need him to be looking like the best version of himself. To provide a bit of positivity in that direction here, that I did want to pull up this tweet from Scott Lauber, who says Turner had a grade 1 hamstring strain in April 2017, missed 11 games, and went 21 for 57 in 13 games upon returning, although he didn't attempt a stolen base until his 9th game back. Regardless, if this was going to happen, it seems like the best case scenario for the Phillies. And this quote tweeting the initial post that says, Rob Thomson said Trea Turner had a grade 1 strain. It's less severe than his injury last season, which was grade 2. The Phillies are hopeful that he will be able to return before the postseason. And that is a huge storyline to note here, is this is not as bad as the issue that he left with last year. Now, that does not mean the Phillies can be, they have to go about this carefully, treat this the right way, and be over precautious with the current outlook, but it is a bit of a sigh of relief thing. Now, the Alec Bohm conversation, that sort of spawned out of nowhere, that I don't think anyone expected that. It is a 10-day sore shoulder thing, and I don't think anything that is expected to be a big deal. It is nice that we're seeing Otto Kemp back at the major league level, and Edmundo Sosa becomes the man of the hour for this Phillies team. That, for Turner specifically, it's impossible to replace fully what he brings to the table. That on the season, we're talking about a guy with 15 home runs, 69 RBIs, a 356 on-base percentage, has 179 hits, 36 stolen bases, and 43 walks across his 587 at-bats, has struck out 107 times, but Sosa is a much better option than we're going to get for a lot of plug-and-play opportunities on teams. And so far this season for Edmundo Sosa, he's got 216 at-bats, has 7 home runs, 33 RBIs, a 309 on-base percentage, and a 426 slugging percentage there, has walked 10 times with 59 hits, just striking out 51 times across this portion here. We've seen Sosa play second. We've seen him play a little bit of third base there, and even shortstop that he's capable of. I do wonder if they try and slide Bryson Stott over to shortstop for a little and give him some opportunities there. I personally feel that that would be an upgrade to the overall defensive level of the infield for what we've seen, that I just think Stott plays the position very well. Turner, to his credit, has been far better defensively this season than any prior in a Phillies uniform here, and really throughout his career, but I am a Bryson Stott guy from a defensive perspective. Like what he brings to the table. They may rock with him at second just to keep some familiarity, but something to note there. Sosa is going to be the guy that's essentially going to be playing every day while Trea Turner is out. And there was a little bit of buzz, and I kind of speculated myself in the previous video here about Aiden Miller potentially getting a chance. This has been a guy that has been tearing it up in the minor leagues, but Rob Thomson put a little bit of a shut the door on that thought process here. As he said, per Devin Caney of WIP, that Rob Thomson on Aiden Miller. He needs to make it through this year in the minor league side, and then we can go from there. For what it's worth, Aiden Miller with Double-A Reading since July 1st, that he's had 183 at-bats, has tallied 52 hits, 16 doubles, 7 home runs, and 21 RBIs across this stretch. That comes out to slash lines of 284, 421, and 497. Really good stuff. And speaking of defense, that is a guy his glove is already MLB ready. How his bat translates is the bigger question, and we'll have those questions answered over time here. But I think this has been a very encouraging season for Aiden Miller, and he's kind of grown in the conversation of players to watch in this minor league track record. We've talked plenty about Justin Crawford. We've talked plenty about Andrew Painter. I kind of looked at Aiden Miller as a guy who was landlocked and probably not a role for him on this Phillies team. Even at the deadline, I was pretty open to dealing this guy. The more that I watch his game, the more I'm against that thought process and pretty thankful that he remains within the Phillies organization. But we will see how that plays itself out. In the meantime, this team needs to continue plugging on. That they have a 7-game lead over the New York Mets ahead of the season opener tonight. Recording this right before the game is about to have first pitch, so hoping to get this up beforehand here. And did want to note a little bit of a different lineup configuration as we have Bryce Harper batting leadoff for the first time since October 4th, 2022, and just the second time in the last 6 seasons. So the Phillies lineup that they are rolling with here: Harper batting leadoff, Kyle Schwarber at second, JT Realmuto in the 3-hole, Max Kepler batting cleanup. And I got to say that if you had told me a couple months ago that Kepler would be batting cleanup for this Phillies team, I would have called you crazy there. But nonetheless, shout out to Max for stepping up. Harrison Bader in the 5-hole, Nick Castellanos batting 6th, Bryson Stott, Edmundo Sosa, and Otto Kemp closing things out here. This is a situation that I expect to be fairly fluid for how they're looking at the lineup. And I do think this is the time to get a little crazy. That I understand there is 19 games left in the season to this point, but for the most part, the Phillies have done their job. That they've put themselves in good standing with the playoffs on the horizon. You have a 7-game lead against the New York Mets and can essentially shut the door for them potentially winning the NL East with a good series in this. They don't even have to, sweep them or win 3. If you split with this Mets team, it is essentially over from an NL East race perspective. Now, granted, with that said, that really is not the race to pay attention to at this stage of the game. That the priority has to be earning that bye, especially when you factor in the Trea Turner injury, Zack Wheeler being shut down, Alec Bohm being banged up. It feels more essential than ever to make sure that they get a bye week for that opening round, and I do think that will be the priority. So I'm not saying the wins do not matter from here, but they are in a good spot. If the season were to end today, that they would be locked in that 2nd seed and getting a first-round bye. That is how we hope things shake out. They have another series coming up against the Dodgers. The Phillies control their destiny from here, which I do think is a good thing. So obviously not a great thing that Trea Turner is on the injured list, joining Alec Bohm, and the various issues going down within this Phillies team, but not the end of the world. This is not derailing the season in the way that I thought there was potential for when Trea Turner first limped off that field. So shout out to Trea Turner for not having as severe of a hamstring issue as was the case last year. Shout out to you guys for tuning into this video as well, and make sure you're dropping any thoughts that you have below. Appreciate you guys for rocking with us. We got the final push to the playoffs and a ton of big plans on the horizon. So the best way to keep in touch is by hitting that subscribe button here. Make sure you're smashing that button, dropping a like on this video, any comments you below, and I'll be back talking to you next time right here on Phillies Digest. Peace.